Hey there, imagine for a second that everything around you, the world you see, the things you touch, even your thoughts, could all be fake. A simulation like a computer program running on some super advanced machine, maybe created by someone far beyond us in the future. What if I told you there's a theory that suggests you're not real, at least not in the way you think? The world you know, the people you love, the places you go, and everything in between. What if it's all just a simulated reality? Crazy, right? But it's a theory that has sparked debates, inspired movies, and made people question everything they thought they knew about reality. It's called the simulation hypothesis, and today, we're going to dive deep into it. Buckle up because we're about to explore some mind-bending ideas that will leave you questioning what's real. First things first, let's break it down. The simulation hypothesis says that everything you experience, the world you live in, your consciousness, the air you breathe, the coffee you drink, the people you talk to, could all be part of a simulation, an artificial reality created by a more advanced civilization or a super-intelligent AI. Imagine everything you know and even who you are could be just data in a massive computer program. Crazy, right? This idea isn't just the stuff of sci-fi movies, it's been seriously discussed by scientists, philosophers, and even some of the smartest minds of our time. It all started in 2003, when a philosopher named Nick Bostrom wrote a paper that brought this idea into the mainstream. He argued that based on the progress of technology, it's extremely possible that at some point in the future, a civilization will develop technology so advanced they could create a simulation of reality that's indistinguishable from actual reality. And here's the kicker. Bostrom theorized that if these advanced civilizations exist, they may be running simulations of our reality. So, what are the odds that we're living in the real world, and not a simulation? Well, according to Bostrom's reasoning, the odds are against us. It's much more likely that we're in a simulation. Okay, but now you're probably wondering, why would anyone want to simulate us? I mean, we're just regular people, right? What's the point of creating a world like ours? Well, there are a few theories about that. Let's break it down. One of the most popular ideas is that these future civilizations might run simulations to study their ancestors, us. Imagine a future society trying to learn about the past, about the way humans lived, our cultures, our wars, our advancements, or even our mistakes. They might simulate entire worlds where they can observe how we interacted, how we made decisions, and what choices led to major breakthroughs or failures. It's like a massive history project, but instead of digging up fossils or reading old books, they can create a world and watch history unfold in real time. It's a bit like how we create video games to simulate life, except this would be real people. People who don't know they're part of a simulation. Okay, so let's say the future is capable of running these simulations. What's to stop them from simulating an entire world? And, if they do, how would we ever know we're in one? Well, this is where it gets really mind-blowing. Here's the thing. If the simulation is perfectly created, then there's no way for us to know it's fake. Everything would seem just like reality. Every tree, every person, every building, everything would feel 100% real. Now don't panic just yet, it's not all doom and gloom. Think about it this way. You have never doubted the reality of the world you live in, right? You trust your senses, you see the sunrise, you feel the wind, you talk to your friends. All of this feels real to you. So if we're in a simulation, it's designed to make us feel like we're in the real world. Our perceptions are programmed to match what we think is real. So, how do we know this is even possible? Let's get a bit scientific. As technology continues to advance, the idea of simulating a world seems a little less far-fetched. Think about virtual reality. The games we play today, even if they look like pixelated worlds, are becoming more immersive by the day. Imagine a world where VR isn't just a game, but a whole fully immersive reality. People could plug into it and live their entire lives inside a digital universe, unaware that they're not in the real world, but it doesn't stop there. Take artificial intelligence. Right now, AI can already perform incredible tasks like recognizing faces, creating art, or even playing chess at a superhuman level. If AI keeps advancing, it might eventually have the computational power to simulate not just people, but entire universes, with conscious beings like you and me living inside them. But here's where it gets even weirder. Some scientists think quantum mechanics might actually be the key to understanding if we're living in a simulation. Let me explain. In quantum physics, particles behave in very strange ways. Sometimes they seem to exist in multiple states at once, and they only settle on a particular state when they're observed. This is called superposition. Now, what does this have to do with simulations? Well, some researchers believe that if our universe is a simulation, this weird quantum behavior might be a clue. Think about it. If the world is a computer simulation, the system wouldn't need to fully render every single detail until it's necessary. For example, the moment you look at a tree, the simulation can load all the details of that tree. But when you're not looking, it can leave the tree unfinished until it's needed. It's kind of like how video games render the parts of the world you're close to, but don't bother creating the parts far away until you get there. At this point, you're probably asking, well, where's the proof? Here's the thing. Right now, there's no solid proof that we're living in a simulation. Sure, we've got some theories and ideas, but there's no concrete evidence to say that it's definitely true. But there are some interesting clues that we could look for. For example, some scientists have suggested that if we're in a simulation, there might be certain glitches or errors that we could detect. Maybe the laws of physics will break down in certain ways, or we might notice something out of place, like an object acting in a strange way. If these glitches are found, it could hint that our reality is not as solid as we think. But there's a bigger question here, one that goes beyond just whether or not we're in a simulation. And that question is, what does it mean to be real? If we're part of a simulation, does that make our feelings, thoughts, and experiences any less valid? Does it take away the meaning of life if it's all just a program? Some people argue that no matter what, our experiences are real to us, and that's what matters most. Whether or not we're living in a simulated world doesn't change the fact that we live, love, and experience the world in meaningful ways. In the end, perhaps the real world is not so much about what's physical, but about how we experience it. Let's take a deeper dive into the core of the simulation hypothesis with something called the simulation argument. This argument was proposed by philosopher Nick Bostrom in 2003. And it's the idea that at least one of the following three statements must be true. 1. Human civilization will go extinct before reaching a post-human stage where we can create realistic simulations. 2. A post-human civilization would not be interested in creating simulations of their ancestors or simulations of beings like us. 3. We are almost certainly living in a simulation. So, according to Bostrom, one of these three must hold. That means either humanity will destroy itself before we create the technology to make a simulation, or a future civilization will deliberately decide not to simulate conscious beings, or we are already in a simulation. Here's the twist. If we assume that the first two options are unlikely, then it follows that there's a high probability that we are in fact living in a simulation. This part of the argument is especially compelling because it uses probability theory. The reasoning is simple. As technology continues to advance, it seems likely that future civilizations will develop the power to create incredibly realistic simulations, and it would make sense for them to want to do so. So if this is the case, the number of simulated realities will outnumber the number of real realities. And with that in mind, the likelihood of us being in a simulation goes up dramatically. But let's back up for a second and talk about the technology involved. It's easy to think about simulations as something like a video game, right? But we're talking about something far beyond that. At the heart of the simulation hypothesis is the idea that an advanced civilization might be able to simulate not just a few people but entire worlds, down to the smallest particles and the tiniest details like how atoms behave, how molecules move, and even how consciousness works. Now, how in the world could anyone achieve that? The answer lies in the growing capabilities of computational power and artificial intelligence. Right now, we're already on the path. Look at how far we've come in terms of virtual reality and augmented reality. These technologies are still in their early stages, but even today, VR allows us to step into immersive digital worlds that feel incredibly real. With more advancements, these virtual spaces are likely to become indistinguishable from the real world, especially when combined with AI. Consider the pace of quantum computing. Quantum computers use the principles of quantum mechanics to process information in fundamentally different ways than traditional computers. They're exponentially more powerful than the computers we have now. So, imagine if a future civilization harnesses the power of quantum computers to simulate an entire universe. That would give them the ability to process unimaginable amounts of data and simulate the world around us with stunning realism. Every aspect of reality, from the weather to the behavior of molecules to our thoughts, could be modeled in this vast simulation. As crazy as it sounds, this may be closer than we think. Just a few decades ago, people laughed at the idea of quantum computers. Today we're watching them make huge strides, so if this trajectory continues, creating an entire simulated world might not be as far-fetched as it sounds. Now, the question is, how would we ever know if we're living in a simulation? It's not like we'll wake up one day with a message flashing across the sky saying, "Surprise, you're in a simulation." But here's where it gets interesting. Some scientists believe we might be able to find clues that suggest we're living in a simulated reality. These clues would be subtle, and they would be the kind of things we don't typically notice in our day-to-day lives. Let's take a look at a few possibilities. One clue could be pixelation or a similar effect. In video games or simulations, the world is often built on a grid of data points or pixels. In the context of a simulation, the world might not be infinitely smooth and continuous. Instead, it might be made of discrete units like pixels or blocks. These might not be obvious to us, but there could be patterns or irregularities in nature that suggest our world is built on a grid or algorithmic structure. For example, certain features in the universe might seem like they follow a mathematical pattern, such as the way light behaves, the movements of celestial bodies, or even the way particles interact at the quantum level. These patterns could hint that our world operates based on a set of rules or codes, much like a computer program. Another clue would be noticing glitches in the simulation. These could be things like strange occurrences, unusual phenomena, or inexplicable experiences that don't seem to follow the normal rules of physics. Think about the times you've seen a sudden weird coincidence, like something happening that's too perfect to be random. It could be a glitch, a sign that the system is failing to account for something, or that it's being manipulated in ways we don't fully understand. For example, imagine you're walking down the street and see someone you haven't seen in years, only to find out they were thinking about you at the exact same moment. Coincidence? Or could that be a sign that something deeper is happening within the simulation? Some scientists think that time and space themselves could offer clues. If we dig into quantum physics, we know that time doesn't always behave the way we expect. Time dilation happens when objects move at extremely high speeds, and in quantum mechanics, particles can act as if they're in multiple places at once. These strange behaviors might be hints that our universe isn't quite as real as we think. Perhaps it's simply being simulated with a set of rules that aren't the same as the ones we intuitively understand. Let's take a step back from the science for a moment. If we really are in a simulation, what does that mean for us? What does it mean to be real? Philosophers have been pondering this question for centuries. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato used the allegory of the cave to describe how humans perceive reality. Imagine prisoners chained inside a cave, only able to see the shadows cast on the wall by objects behind them. They think those shadows are real, but in fact, they're just projections. Plato argued that our senses are limited, and that there's a deeper reality beyond what we can perceive. Today we can apply this idea to the simulation hypothesis. If we are living in a simulation, does that mean our experience of the world isn't real? Does it mean we're just programmed characters in some higher being's game? Or, as some thinkers argue, does it mean that our experiences are just as real as any other form of consciousness, regardless of whether or not we're simulated? The philosopher René Descartes famously said, "I think therefore I am," suggesting that our thoughts and self-awareness are what define our existence. If we're aware of our thoughts, feelings, and experiences, does it really matter if we're in a simulation? After all, to us, it feels real. So where does that leave us? Are we living in a simulation? Well, we don't know for sure. The simulation hypothesis is a fascinating idea, one that challenges everything we think we know about reality. But at the end of the day, we don't have all the answers. One thing is clear though, The questions raised by the simulation hypothesis invite us to think more deeply about our place in the universe. Whether we're part of an advanced simulation or we're living in the real world, the experience of life, our relationships, our memories, our goals, is something we get to create for ourselves. Even if we are living in a simulation, it doesn't change the fact that we feel the joy, the heartbreak, and the wonder of existence. After all, isn't that what makes life meaningful, no matter where it's taking place? Thank you for joining me on this wild ride through the simulation hypothesis. I hope this video got you thinking a little differently about reality. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends because, who knows, maybe they're in a simulation too. And let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think we're living in a simulation, or is reality just what we see and touch? Until next time, keep wondering, keep questioning, and keep seeking the truth. Know more. Be more.